Hello everybody, welcome to another Valheim tutorial. Today's video is dedicated to Randall Witted, who's having an experience where they're playing with their family, and I think that is so cool when people can play Valheim with their kids and stuff. He said that too many trolls and bears were spawning around his daughter when she was playing, and it was abrasive for her. So not only am I going to show you how to use the world modifiers, I'm going to show you how to remove specific enemies if they're causing problems for your kids. Because after all, if you can make the game more palatable for your children, I mean, that must be an incredible experience. I'm going to show you a Zap hosting interface, but it's the same process pretty much no matter what server host you use, although not all of them offer BepInEx. So that's something really important. You want to make sure that you can get a Valheim BepInEx server from the host directly. It's much more finicky if you have to install BepInEx yourself, because then you have to maintain it as well. I recommend that you work from the very beginning with a host that offers these pre-installations of BepInEx Valheim. That way, it's all automated, you don't have to worry about it. You could also do the same process for your own server. Just keep in mind you do that part a little bit differently. First things first, we need to make sure that you set your Valheim game type to Valheim BepInEx. There's reasons that this is going to be important, and I'm going to save you the time and just have you do it straight away. Before you do this though, you have to get FileZilla so you can connect to the server through FTP, and then you'll need to get the FTP information for your server by going down to the third section here under Tools, FTP Browser. This will give you the login information for your server. I'm going to assume that you've already set this up. The process of getting it to be Valheim BepInEx will delete whatever you have on the server. So make sure that you download the world file before you do so. Once you've downloaded your world file, you're going to go to the left and scroll down to this game section over here. From here, you can see the Valheim game types that you have set up. I've already installed both types, so it looks a bit different. You're just going to click on this change slot price and then look for Valheim BepInEx. That's what you want. And even if you're playing vanilla, you should have a BepInEx server for reasons I'll explain later. The first time you've set the BepInEx server up, you want to turn it on, wait about a minute, and then turn it off. At that point, you're going to download Expand World Prefabs from Thunderstore, YAML.net, which is a dependency, server dev commands, and Upgrade World. You'll have 4 DLLs, okay? Once you've downloaded all of those DLLs, you're going to go into FileZilla and put in the credentials that you got from your server host to log directly in. The top layer will be some kind of random number, don't worry about it. What you're looking for is the Valheim BepInEx Linux, BepInEx, and then plugins. This is where you're going to paste those DLLs onto the server. And this is why you were supposed to restart the server once to make sure that it generated this plugins folder in BepInEx for you. All that you need is YAML.net, Upgrade World, server dev commands, and Expand World Prefabs. Once you've put these on the server, then we're good to go. So let's go back to our main page up here, and then you can just restart the server by turning it off and turning it back on. Now, there is an issue that might sometimes happen where for some reason your BepInEx doesn't load on the server, even though you have it put there, right? So I'm going to show you how to fix that real quick, just in case it happens to you. You're going to need to go into your config here, and then just open up the regular BepInEx config file. That's going to bring you to something looking like this, okay? And there's a couple values here that you might want to change if you're experiencing issues. If you're not experiencing any issues, then don't worry about it. You can scroll down to the logging console section here and set this to true. There's some situations where this kind of hangs everything else up. And then afterwards, you can also have this one here, which stops the console from getting closed. And I've found that for some reason, these settings can prevent BepInEx from launching properly. Now that you've got that all set up, we can talk about the world modifier thing. Because to be honest, I know that you wanted to use the commands directly, but I don't recommend that you do that because they're really finicky and it's really easy to mess it up or make a typo or something. Instead, a much better way to handle it is to just download the world file from the server and then just take that file and put it back on the server. This is going to be the easiest way for you to get it to be exactly what you want. Let's look at the world modifiers so that you can get more comfortable with it. There's two sections here. First, you have all of the actual keys and the values. The presets just adjust these other things. So if I pick easy, it'll change all these. If I pick immersive, it'll change all these ones. So I'm not going to cover the presets. Instead, I'm going to quickly explain to you what each world modifier does, and specifically the ones that might be interesting to you as people with children. First, most importantly, is passive enemies. This will make it so that enemies can spawn, but they will only attack you if you attack them. Probably that's all you need to do in a lot of cases. It's the simplest way to solve the problem. And that brings us to our next point, because all of these world modifiers are global. They'll happen to everybody. So while I will explain these, I need to do more than that to give you that fine-tuned control of the experience. The next thing to focus on is the raid rate. You can decide whether you want it to be completely turned off, or you want it to be less, much less, etc. I personally would recommend that you might turn it off completely, because the raids can be quite jarring. So depending on your comfort level, maybe put it at much less or none. Then we have resource rate, which determines how many extra items you'll get from all of the monster drops and the wood and the stone in the game. So if you want to slow people down, you would make it smaller. If you want to speed people up, you would use a higher resource rate. I would imagine that children would like a higher resource rate so they get a lot of wood without having to do a lot of chopping. Next we have the death penalty, which I would recommend that you set all the way to casual. The death penalty in Valheim can be really punishing, even on normal settings, and it takes away your skills and is just overly punishing. So I would encourage you to just play it on casual, even if you're playing normally without children. I find it to be a more enjoyable experience. And then we have the combat difficulty. This is actually going to do a few things. It's going to increase the size and the speed and basically the power of the enemies. So there are certain enemies you won't be able to outrun on very hard that you can easily outrun on very easy. So this you could put wherever you want really, because if you're using passive enemies, then you could make the enemies really hard, and it's not going to be jarring because they won't attack anybody unless they are attacked first. So you don't necessarily have to put it on very easy, and that's the glory of Valheim. You have a lot of flexibility here. The next keys would be no build cost, which makes it so you only have to find an item once, and then you can use unlimited of it forever. And then we have fire hazards, which means things are flammable or not flammable. Pretty easy. And then there's no map, of course. Get rid of the map. Pretty self-explanatory. Once you've gotten a sense of which world modifiers you want to try, I recommend that you log into the world and just make sure it is what you expected, test it out a little bit, see how it works so that you understand it, and then log out, make sure it is how you want it, and exit. Because at this point, we need to get that world file back off of your client and put it onto the server, and you just do the inverse process of what you did to back up your world file earlier. You upload to the FTP client. With Zap hosting, you'll have the game server number, then you'll have Valheim BepInEx, and from here, you want to go down to Worlds Local, and that's going to be where you have your world files. The most recent one is these two here, the DB, which is all of the data, and the FWL, which is sort of like the terrain data and some other stuff. This file is always going to be bigger, and this one's always going to be really small. But all world files are 2 files, okay? So now that we've covered this, you now have the option of setting the different world modifiers. But as I mentioned earlier, this is going to produce a whole new problem because the world modifier will apply to the whole world. If you change the world for one, you're going to mess things up for the other. So I'm now going to show you how to get much finer control about every little detail. This way, you can just simply remove parts of the game that are bothersome for your children or the people that you play with. This is where we'll start talking about some very basic scripting with Expand World Prefabs. This is the mod that allows you to put a script on your server and then just manually tweak and adjust things. So let's look at the situation that you were talking about. Valheim is an absolutely beautiful game world. And what often happens is people will end up in bases near the Black Forest. But the Black Forest, as you've found, has some very dangerous monsters in it, the troll and the bear. So it's not surprising that a bear and trolls have been causing problems for your young builder. And here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that you actually don't worry too much about the world modifiers, and instead, you just make it so the bear and the troll aren't a problem, okay? Here we have the bear, which is Bjorn, that's the prefab name. And here we have the troll, and it just so happened to be the most destructive form of the troll, the notorious stick troll. I'm gonna show you how to just remove them from the game entirely. That's a good place to start, and then you can learn more about limits and other things so that you can put them back in, of course, in places that are far away from the concerned builder. We'll begin with a very simple script that removes all of the troll and the bear when they're created. We're gonna put a little comment up here, right, saying what the prefab script is gonna do. And then we need to declare the entry with -prefab, and then the prefabs that we're gonna mess with. In this case, it's the Bjorn, the bear, and the troll. You have to use the ones that are in the game. They don't always match the name. And then we're gonna add type create. This essentially means when the bear or the troll is created, do something. So what are they gonna do? We're going to remove them, okay? Remove true. Very simple script, very minimal. Now what we need to do is figure out how to deal with all of the monsters who act or who are already there. Make sense? This one's a little bit more complicated, but don't worry too much about it. We're gonna use the same two prefabs, the Bjorn and also the troll. And then here we're gonna do a different type. Instead of create, it's gonna be state. And then we're gonna use something called freeze frame, which is something that happens to both the player and the monsters. Now, whenever this happens, they're gonna get removed, okay? But I'm gonna help you out a little bit and add some things here that you can adjust to make this work more how you want it to, okay? The first two things we're gonna do is add a weight, all right? Weight is like the chance that it's gonna happen. So this would be 100% chance, sort of. And this would be a 10% chance, okay? So what we're gonna do is just leave it at 1, so you can adjust it and lower it if you want, but for now it's gonna remove all of them. And then for this one here, we're gonna do the same thing. So you can adjust it later on if you want to. And then one last piece of adjustment I'm gonna talk to you about is biomes, because maybe you wanna make it so there's no bear or troll in the meadows, but there are in the Black Forest. Doesn't really matter for the troll, but you could do that. You could go like meadows, Black Forest. Now, let's notate this a little bit better. So removes creatures when they act. So that'll get the ones that have already spawned, and then they'll move around a bit, and then they'll get removed. Maybe you want to make it so that in certain biomes, this has different chances, right? So then you could do meadows, Black Forest, okay? Whereas this is the same thing, but only in the meadows. So you can imagine how you could be like, okay, if they're in the meadows, I want them to be removed as soon as they move. But if they're in the Black Forest, maybe I only want it to happen sometime, so they can get away with a couple attacks, but then they disappear. Either way, this is all you really need, and you'll be able to do a whole lot just with what you've seen so far. And that's the sheer glory of EWP. It is a vanilla-friendly mod that allows you to make server-side adjustments that change the server experience for everybody who plays on it. And let's say you want to learn more about this, or you want to get your own Zap hosting server, then consider using my link, JP Valheim at Zap Hosting. As you've seen, you can get pre-configured BepInEx servers that allow you to easily install mods and set up this whole experience, and everybody who joins can be completely vanilla with not a single mod installed, but they'll still have to deal with the changes that you made to the server using EWP. And if you want, you could activate crossplay on your server, and that would allow your players to play on Xbox or Mac or PlayStation once it comes out. If you want to have a server that can have 4 or 5 people, don't use crossplay. If you're just going to play with 1 or 2 of your friends, then feel free to use crossplay. Alternatively, if you want to support me more directly, I do offer a Patreon. I've been pretty much working on Valheim related stuff, and I openly share all of the scripts that I make, and everything I do is open source, and I encourage people to copy and take it. But I would say it is like a full-time job that I earn like $300 a month from, and I'm very grateful for everyone's support. But it is definitely something that I really could use more help with, and I'm gonna do it either way. I'm gonna just keep working on these things, but it definitely would make my life easier if you're able to and interested in supporting me, even if it's just for a month or two. It really does help me keep focusing on Valheim, making scripts, and making content. And you can also join the live streams. I have 3 live streams a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if you're able to, you can hang out there and ask me questions. I'll cover anything and rant about it for a little bit. So if you want to learn, you can set something up. And I also have live streams, conversations with other content creators and other people who really love Valheim. I've recently been doing some more with Dakar, doing a series about building. So if you guys want another one of those, then just let me know. Honestly, I will do another one at some point either way, but if you comment, I'll show that to Dakar and it'll probably happen sooner. So you can make it happen. Alright everybody, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.